alien resurrection, xenomorph, extraterrestrial.
It is your host, Emmanuel Isaiah Smith, and I am in Miami, Florida. And I want to say a word about redactions, deletions, and the repeal process in legislative matters. If a bill or a law is found to be degenerate, there is a repeal process. So for example, let's say gang-stalking is deemed degenerate. Degenerate bill would be voted upon by Congress after a debate whether or not the bill serves society or if it doesn't serve society. If it does serve society, then the bill is left alone, using majority voting in the Congress. If it's seen as degenerate or deliberate, the repeal of the bill, which leaves the bill useless or null and void. So there is a repeal process, there is a deletion process. The line item veto is a power that the President of the United States used to have to personally go through a bill and delete idly were useful. So for example, that whatever national security bill is responsible for gang-stalking, with the line item veto, the president could go in and delete the item and leave the rest of the bill alone. But that is no longer the case. In the United States, we do not have made illegal at some point. So if the president does not like a bill, he has to send the entire bill back with notations on he didn't want. And Congress would have to vote on whether or not to get rid of the stipulations or simply hold on to the bill until a government shutdown happens, at which point there are no new spending measures passed. So ultimately there is a process, and I believe that with gang-stalking, of course there'll be an investigation. There are already investigations happening. But, I mean, for me, I'm glad it's being investigated. I mean, to investigate measures through that were passed that are no longer of any use or never was. A lot of stuff gets passed through Congress without them seeing it. Sometimes it's not brought to their attention, been implemented. Gang-stalking is one of those. Excuse me. Gang-stalking is one of those things. I mean, it was passed under a national security package. It was implemented. It doesn't work. Okay, it's poorly managed, and it's extremely dangerous and annoying. So, a matter of people in Congress doing the right thing, doing the smart thing, and that is to see and understand the Constitution, know when something has been passed that tramples upon or ignores the Constitution, and get rid of it. The day gang-stalking is repealed, that'll be a good day. It'll be a good day for a lot of people. I think that there are more efficient and effective society to combat potential crimes or to prevent potential criminals from harming society. A clandestine mechanism that's extrajudicial in nature, and leaves everyone sort of in a state of what's going to happen next. There are better ways.
Alien resurrection, xenomorph, extraterrestrial.
What?
It is your host, Emmanuel Isaiah Smith, and I want to say a word about extreme acts of cowardice in the United States. So this gang-stalking program, which has been passed through Congress as a national security measure, is little more than an extreme act of cowardice. It's an extreme act of personal How is it cowardly? Because it's a social engineering that has been used to attack United States citizens that would otherwise be unattackable. It doesn't matter where you live. The goal is simply to disrupt you and harm you and attack you and subvert you. Those are the only goals in gang stalking. Now, in the process, it's totally extrajudicial, so that means you don't know when the thing will end or if it will end. All you can do is try to fight it, avoid it, document it.
What?
My work has changes that are occurring in my
What?
campaign. I'm noticing that, however, there appears to be some obstruction to what they're doing by other third parties. Now, no one has come to me personally. I think I see where the thing is losing faith in the intelligence community. These are based on interaction thing to do what they do, even if it's disgusting. And gang stalkers are disgusting. And the thing about it is there's no legal definition for gang stalking right now, so it's impossible to prosecute. That is not on the books. I'd like to see everyone who's ever participated in gang stalking to be prosecuted and sent to jail. The cowardly mechanism makes it difficult to prosecute the people who participate in gang stalking, even the gang stalkers who kill people. And yes, there are gang stalkers who have those to and away from the target. That's an extreme act of cowardice. Whoever is perpetrating these crimes should be sent to death on, death row and get the death penalty, and the people that sent them should be tried and executed by lethal injection or by hanging. This being for acts of treason, and the people who sent gang stalking through Congress under the guise of national security legislation ought to be tried and prosecuted for mass murder and sent to the gallows for terrorism.
What?
Alien resurrection, xenomorph, extraterrestrial. Alien resurrection, xenomorph, extraterrestrial.
Welcome to Gang-stalking in action. Hello, good evening, Happy New Year. It is your host, Emmanuel Isaiah Smith, founder and CEO of EIS Media Group and Bible Discourses, LLC. Disclaimer: all content is original. I collaborate with no one. Otherwise, I make no consultations or collaborations with third parties, and this is done to ensure the integrity of my message. Thuggery. Here in the United States, you have mob rule. It is very similar to the Jim Crow era, in which laws could be made up on the spot by American citizens against other American citizens. Well, when you're out and about, rather. Laws are made up on the spot by hidden third parties that will never show their face because they're afraid of jail. I mean, this is a very violent, very hostile, very illegal program, and I imagine the orchestrators of it are criminally liable for something. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, laws are made up on the spot for targeted individuals. Okay? You have a mobile detainment. Okay? There are presently about 800,000 uniformed law enforcers in this country. I don't know if any of them are plugged into the gang-stalking mechanism with respect to an administrative role, unknowingly participate. Nevertheless, it's a thuggish program. Its goal is simply to detain, disrupt, and derail whoever it is the target is, and the target is made known by the stalkers through a system of verbal commands, physical gestures, various other cues, vehicular maneuvers, which are extremely dangerous and cowardly, and other factors. These mechanisms are put in play to point out the targeted person to other gang-stalking, because they themselves participate in it. All a stalker has to do is mark you somehow with some gesture or cue so that other stalkers know who to harass and how. Now, this thing is off the books mostly. There are no judicial specified gang stalking as anything more than a concept right now, but that will change. Congress is already looking at this thing, and I wouldn't be surprised if many U.S. politicians knew me personally from my work online. What I do is patriotic. Nothing wrong with dissent, and a person dissenting is an inalienable right, which is a right that is specified in the United States Constitution as a right that all people born into this world have, regardless of any intrusions on those rights. Thank you. It is your host, E.I. Smith. The date is Friday, April 26th, 2019. The time is 6:06 p.m. I am at Harryberry Park, and I'm about to make my way to the concert area at Margaritaville. We're going to get some gang stalking caught on camera today. I'm also going to talk about gang stalking in general and its many aspects. We're going to document synchronized space crowding and other obstructive gang stalking practices that will be carried out against my person. Let's go. I'd like to talk some about gang stalking in relation to the general public. Whenever American law enforcement is accused or exposed of engaging in corruption, there is a demographic of people that are unwilling to accept the findings. And when I say law enforcement, I mean local, state, and federal. There's a demographic of people in the United States that stand behind law enforcement regardless of if they do something corrupt or evil. Even if the corruption is documented, exposed, and proven in a court of law, resulting in convictions against the law enforcement officers, there are still people who refuse to accept that series of events as valid and or indicative of a law enforcement corruption problem in the United States. There are people in this country that stand by law enforcement as the best, brightest, and most courageous U.S. citizens that are above reproach and should be given full, unchecked powers to do their jobs. I've even heard citizens say publicly that law enforcement officers in the United States should be given silencers for their guns so that they can kill whoever they need to kill when they need to kill them without anybody getting wise to it. I've heard citizens say that police officers should not have GPS systems in their vehicles. And that they should be able to go wherever they want, whenever they want, and do whatever they want as a part of their job. I've also heard that and heard myself that there are citizens in this country that believe that police officers should not be subjected to the same courts of law that private citizens are subjected to. So, for example, if a police officer assaults, rapes, robs, or kills somebody, they should go before a special policeman's court that takes their job into special consideration. Me, I believe these views are counterproductive to the American way of life, to American society, and to society in general on a global scale. It's my opinion that when a person decides to become a police officer, they accept the good, the bad, and the ugly of the job when they're sworn into office, when they're sworn into their office as police officers. There are inherent risks involved with becoming a law enforcement officer, just like there are inherent risks involved in becoming a Marine, especially in a time of war, or becoming an Air Force pilot. You see, if you become a Marine in a time of war, there's a chance you'll get dispatched to a war zone and you'll have to fight for your life on behalf of the United States. It is assumed that the Marine accepts the risks when they take the oaths, vows, and legal steps to become a Marine. There's a possibility that they could be killed in action. There's also the chance that they could be awarded medals of honor if they show extraordinary bravery or courage in battle. The same is true for an Air Force pilot. There are inherent risks in flying planes. Something could go wrong with the plane could crash. Sometimes the eject button doesn't work, sometimes the parachutes don't work. It's a part of being a pilot, is understanding and accepting these risks. Now, I use those two examples in relation to the inherent risks of becoming a police officer. If you become a police officer, now mind you, there are approximately 770,000 police officers in the United States at any given time. That's 770,000 officers in a sea of 311 million American citizens. Now, even given the reality that most United States police officers patrol the suburbs and not the inner cities of dangerous cities, mind you, namely those of New York City, Chicago, Philadelphia, Atlanta, Memphis, Miami, Houston, LA, and various other high crime California cities like Oakland. Most police officers do not patrol these kinds of suburbs when they're doing their jobs. Most police officers patrol relatively safe suburbs and are very safe in their jobs, which provide good pay, great benefits, and generous retirement pensions. Furthermore, it's safe to say that the vast majority of American citizens hold police officers in special regard and appreciate what they do, because as first responders, if an urgent emergency takes place and someone is being attacked or assaulted or harmed, or if there's a burglary or a murder or an attempted murder or some other immediately threatening scenario involving one person or a group of people to another person or a group of people, all a person has to do is locate a phone and dial 911 and tell the dispatcher their immediate location, and in a fairly short amount of time there will be officers on the scene ready to remedy the problem and secure the victims while apprehending the offenders and the perpetrators, ready to neutralize them if need be and get them charged with a crime if the scenario lends itself to that circumstance. Furthermore, if there's a fire, people have access to the 911 mechanism, and firemen will be on the scene ready to put the fire out. If someone's having a deadly heart attack, or if there's some other physical medical emergency, a person can call 911 and call the paramedics, and there'll be trained EMS staff on the scene in a relatively short period of time. These mechanisms, combined with the natural uncertainty of life, no one's guaranteed another day, and the inherent frailty of the human body, law enforcement, firefighters, and EMS workers are held in a high regard by most U.S. citizens. Now, that's not to say that a sizable number of American citizens have not had bad experiences with the above-named public servants, because many United States citizens, including myself, have had bad experiences with the above-named public servants and hold them in a low regard. And would rather even handle various emergencies by themselves, or just calling close friends to assist them with emergencies because of their distrust of the above-named public servants. Now, having said that, when members of the above-named vocations, police, fire, ambulance, are accused, exposed of, or convicted of corrupt acts and practices, many people, just out of love for these public servants, refuse to accept it. They refuse to acknowledge it. They refuse to allow it to enter into their consciousness that there are corrupt public servants. And I'm not just talking politicians. People are readily ready to accuse politicians of being corrupt but almost never seem ready to accuse police, fire, and ambulance workers of being corrupt. And it's not just police, fire, and ambulance. There are people that hold security guards in the same respect and with the same regard as police, fire, and ambulance. There are people that hold bounty hunters and bail bonds enforcers and corrections officers in the same regard as police, fire, and ambulance workers. I upload news stories to Twitter via Senate and House, which is my website on Twitter, where I upload news stories and provide political commentary on various happenings of political significance. And time again, I see story after story after story of police misconduct. And I read these articles. Every article I upload, I read first. And I see some of the stuff that goes on. I've experienced police corruption and the covering up of evidence and the withholding of evidence and the lies that police officers tell. Now, having said that, this all ties into gang-stalking in this respect. If a person claims to be gang-stalked and asserts that it is first authorized, planned, executed, and implemented by federal law enforcement agencies in conjunction with corporations and semi-law enforcement agencies, people are prone and inclined to reject that assertion just because of this very blind trust that they have for law enforcement in general. I am not a person to blindly trust anybody. I like to vet all of my sources. I like to vet all news stories, and every situation that I've ever had with a public servant that I found to be suspicious or corrupt, I've weighed the entire scenario in its entirety and looked at all sides before making a condemnation or a decision about the people that I encountered. At the end of the day, my opinion is this: all police, fire, and EMS workers are beholden to the taxpayer that pays their salary. All politicians are beholden to the taxpayer that pays their salary. All military officers are beholden to the taxpayers that pay their salary. All government employees, period, are beholden to the taxpayer that pays their salary. If any of the above engage in organized crime against the United States citizen, it's tantamount to treason. Plain and simple. You don't bite the hand that feeds you, and you don't trample on the U.S. Constitution, the very document that secures the rights and liberties of not only themselves, but the rights and liberties of all U.S. citizens. You don't trample on those as a part of some secret law enforcement mechanism that is being hidden from the general public because of this corrupt reason or that corrupt reason. At the end of the day, if there are covert law enforcement mechanisms that result in a person being constantly obstructed, harassed, intimidated, and disrupted, it's not only a civil rights violation, it's not only a violation of the U.S. Constitution, but it's a human rights violation. And if I were any high law enforcement agency, I would be ashamed of the legacies of COINTELPRO, which was an FBI program, and MK Ultra, which was a CIA program, to the degree that I would never allow such programs or similar programs to even exist. I wouldn't even be a part of it. If I were a legislator, I'd be so ashamed at the legacy of those programs and what they did to United States citizens that I would never engage in anything similar. And I'd make sure that nothing similar ever happened in this country again. But it is happening. It's happening through gang-stalking. Now, I've uploaded, this is the 12th video. The last few, okay, and this is synchronized space crowding here. Notice how these people are coming directly at me. That's not how this boardwalk works. You're supposed to walk on the right side and just walk straight down. They can't stay away from me too long. They're trying to because I'm recording. And they're given their cues not to follow me too close, but they can't not follow me too close for too long. Anyhow, when the recording stops and they see I'm not recording, I will be swarmed, as I always am. But the previous video, Gang-stalking in Action Part 11, shows what happens when the camera stops. Their arrogance and their hubris cause them to forget that I have the ability to upload these videos from my phone to Google Drive, post them to Twitter, and then delete it off my phone to create space so I can record another video. And their arrogance stopped them from properly preparing. So anyhow, I picked up the phone and started recording again, and they started stalking, and I caught them. I'm going to catch them next time too. This is the and without embellishment, that night I developed a strep throat and was sick for the next 7 to 10 days. I've had that happen to me on 2 occasions, where for 7 to 10 days I was sick as a result of a very sick person with some sort of a communicable disease sitting down next to me at that library, yawning, and as a result of that yawn, I became sick, very sick, for a very long period of time. 7 to 10 days is a long time to have a strep throat. Trust me, it's very, very irritating. Now keep in mind that there are communicable diseases that can be communicated through the air. Not every disease has to be communicated because somebody that was sick touched you, or you happened to kiss somebody that was sick, or somebody that was sick ate something and gave you a piece of it, or you happened to eat or drink something off of somebody that happened to be sick. That's not how all diseases are spread. There are diseases that can be spread through the air. A person who is very sick yawning near you. Breath carries moisture, and moisture carries bacteria. Somebody coughing near you, somebody sneezing near you. Somebody who is very sick talking in your face for a extended period of time can result in you getting sick. Bacteria travels through the air very easily. And keep in mind that bacteria is microscopic. You can't see it with the naked eye. You have to use a high-powered magnifying device to see bacteria. And it weighs almost nothing. So it can travel through the air very easily. And there are a lot of diseases that get communicated from party A to party B through the air. That's a lot of what gang-stalking is, making the targeted individual sick. So that they have to miss work, so that they have to miss class. So that they'll be less than what they could be. I regularly encourage my viewers to look at the Fox 45 ABC 22 interview that I did on March 5th, 2017 at 7 p.m. with Fox 45 News reporter Siobhan Anderson and her camera guy. They came over to my house, which was located at 2077 Lakewood Drive in Dayton, Ohio. As we see our first instance of synchronized space crowding. Again, that can only happen to a person so many times before they realize it's a derivation. I come to a driveway, there's a car coming. And it's never, and here's another instance of synchronized space crowding right here. I come to a driveway, there's a car that just happens to be coming. That is not a coincidence, ladies and gentlemen, that is a derivation. That is something that is done to irritate, annoy, impede, and crowd the space of a targeted individual. And those are timed and synchronized so that it cuts you off. Those two people did not make those maneuvers 5 minutes or 10 minutes before I got to the driveway area. They happened the split second that I got to the driveway. That's when they had to be coming. I'll tell you why those morons do that. They do it because they want their vehicles to come in close contact to you. They want their vehicles to get in the closest vicinity possible to you to maximize your discomfort. See, 4 or 5 driveways up, if a car were to turn into that driveway right now, and here's some more. Again, I come to a driveway, there's a car coming. Those are synchronized, and mind you, public service vehicles like the one you see behind me, that's a trolley Those are a part of gang stalking. Now, having said that, I'd like to get back what I was talking to previously. Now, when it gets right down to it, gang stalking, and here's another instance of synchronized space crowding, obstruction of movement. Again, ladies and gentlemen, that is derived, it's timed, and it's synchronized. Those maneuvers are designed to do nothing but impede the space of and harass a targeted individual. I was at the Bell Harbor shops last night, and you saw some synchronized space crowding there too on my Facebook edition. I presently have 7 gang stalking in action Facebook edition videos up on my Twitter page and 30 gang stalking in action originals on Twitter. I'd like to re-emphasize that I do all of my online work myself. I do no collaborations. I also do all of my videos on gang stalking myself and do no collaborations. Everything I do online is original, self-made. And the work of my own congresses. It's easier for me that way because I have a very clear vision of what I want EIS Media Group, Bible Discourses, and my entire collection of online and social media presences to be. And I have envisioned it on my own. I maintain it on my own. Some synchronization. It's not always cars. Sometimes it's pedestrians. 9 minutes left of recording time. As you can see, I have the right of way. from here to Aventura that do not work. I'm starting to think that this is one of them, where if you want to cross the street, you have to jail. Last time I was here, I was waiting for 5 minutes. After the light had turned red for cars going north and south, and this light still didn't turn. So they fixed it. But there is a crosswalk light on 196th Street and US 1. Right next to Aventura Mall, that has been broken for over a year. You could stand there at that intersection for a half hour, and that crosswalk light will not turn for pedestrians. You have to jaywalk if you want to cross 196th Street and US 1. Period. You have to jaywalk. You have to wait until the vehicles coming out of Aventura Mall stop. And the cars turning into Aventura Mall have already gone. Then you just have to walk across as quickly as you can. That was synchronized space crowding, as simple as it looked. Again, a person can only impede your space so many times before you realize it's a derivation. The way that guy was standing, he was standing right in the path of whoever was coming. I've said in previous videos that a lot of these gang stalkers may or may not know that their actions and movements are impeding a person. But that's beside the point. Their actions and movements are impeding a person, and they're doing it in a synchronized fashion. So if they don't know what they're doing, their organizers do. And because gang stalking is a covert practice, all we can do is speculate as to what military, intelligence, and federal law enforcement agencies oversee, manage, and execute gang stalking. I do know this. If you're a quote-unquote powerful person and you make an enemy that is less powerful than you, if you have the connections, you can get them put in a gang stalking campaign. Which is a potentially harmful thing. I've had apartments vandalized from top to bottom. And apparently the culprits 2 years later still haven't been caught. That's because they were protected by gang stalkers. And whoever it was that was vandalizing my place was contaminating my food as well. It got to the point where I couldn't bring food home. I would just eat pre-prepared food every day and just bring nothing home. Because I knew that the moment I left, somebody was going to burglarize my apartment and contaminate the food that I bought. And then every single time I buy food, I would have to take it back to the grocery store and exchange it. And have to explain every single time it was because my apartment was burglarized. It was because my apartment was burglarized. It was because my townhouse was burglarized. Someone contaminated my food. That's gang stalking. Okay, I came to that spot and immediately there was a car coming. That's made to annoy you, frustrate you, and startle you. And it happens everywhere I go. And I've demonstrated how gang stalking works. There's a different kind of stalking that takes place when you're a pedestrian on the street to when you are a passenger on a metro bus. There's a different kind of gang stalking that takes place on a metro bus than takes place when you're on a trolley. There's a different kind of gang stalking that takes place on a trolley than takes place when you are driving. I've never been on a Carnival cruise or one of those cruises on one of those big ships. But when I do take one of those cruises, I'm going to document the kind of gang stalking that goes on one of those ships. Because no doubt, those ships, now mind you, those ships are